The Murray State Racers, Matt Griffin, 5-7 in his third year, now enters his fourth. 17 returning starters, though, and Jeff Earhart, he's a 3-year starter at quarterback. So this is a change for them, a steady quarterback for a while. Charlie Jones, a running back. Wide receiver Marcus Harris, and Derek Townsend will return. 3 returning starters in the offensive line. Their 2 tackles are pretty good.
Yeah, the receivers are the strength of that team. You look at Marcus Harris, a really good player. Kind of reminds me of the other Marcus Harris from a while back that played at the University of Wyoming. Real good receiver, prolific receiver. Marcus Harris is going to have to carry that receiving core. And the quarterback consistency is important. That's the key of that team. 65% completion percentage. He's going to have to improve his touchdown to interception ratio. He had 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That has to improve. But I like the makings of what's going on out there in Murray State.
Well, the defense showed signs of improvement. They went from 41 points per game in 2007 to 31 last year, and giving up 446 to giving up 328. That's over a 100-yard difference, which is a big improvement. And they're led by Austin Lane, first-team All-Conference, 12 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. They lose their leading tackle, Nate Williams, who had a sick 179. That's because I guess their offense is on the field a boatload at a time. But they're in a 4-2-5 system, and they had 8 interceptions.
Well, look for Austin Lane to increase his sacks this season in that 4-2-5. They're going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. He's a really good player. He can get some looks for the NFL as well, too. He's that type of player. You look at Tamar Butler, the linebacker, 9 TFLs, 91 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. So he's a good player in the linebacking core. But overall, that defense has improved. 34 points a game, 62% completion percentage. Opposing quarterbacks completed on that secondary. That has to improve in order for Murray State to be successful.
Taylor Lanigan, their free safety, 104 tackles. So let's see.
And also had 6 pass breakups. So he's around the ball a lot.
The Golden Eagles of Tennessee Tech, Watson Brown, 3-9 last year in his third year, 16 returning starters. 4th year, Lee Sweeney at quarterback. He'll battle Clint Brewster, who is a JUCO transfer who originally signed with Minnesota, so that's a plus. Henry Sales, running back. Cedric Wilkerson are back, but look out for Dante Gay, the sophomore, to give them a run for their money, or they'll all play, these guys. In
order for Tennessee Tech to improve, they have to eliminate the turnovers. Each year the turnovers increase. That's a tremendous detriment to that team trying to build a successful program. You can't turn the ball over. I do like wide receiver Tim Bensford. This guy is a phenomenal athlete. 782 yards receiving, 11.5 yards a catch, 10 touchdowns. The wide receivers are a deep group, a really deep group, top to bottom, 5 deep. They're pretty talented. So they have to get some consistency at quarterback. Running back is another deep group. So they have some depth at running back as well as wide receiver. Offensive line will be a weakness. That has to improve. Build that offensive line from inside out, and that's going to help that team. But they are a weakness right now for Tennessee Tech.
They got the skill positions, but they only have 2 returning starters in the offensive line, which is inexperience, if you were asking me. Defense, they play a 3-4 linebacker sophomore. Travis Atkins leads the way. 3 returning starters in the secondary, led by Teron Rice, Richmond Tooley, and Dustin Dillingham. And this is a big, they were minus 20 in the turnover differential. That's always a key stat every year for a college football team.
Well, you look at that 3-4, you have to be strong on the defensive line. They have a pretty good defensive line with Hilliard and Fisher out there. They gave up 4.8 yards a rush. That has to improve dramatically. If a team can run on you in 3-4, you're going to lose every week. So they have to improve the run defense. Also look at Charlie Severs, 65 tackles, 5 sacks, a really good linebacker for him as well. But my question is 35 points a game. You can't win like that. That has to improve top to bottom. Secondary has to perform better as well.
66% completion rating they're giving up, as you're saying.
Right.
Let's move over to the Governors of Austin Peay. Rick Christoffel, in his 3rd season, 2-9 last year, 15 returning starters. Redshirt freshman Jake Ryan will battle Trent Caffey for the starting job, but Ryan White is there for the tailback, and they have a burner in Terrence Holt, who is a scat back, but he can play every down also. Only 3 returning starters in the offensive line, though.
Yeah, you look at the quarterback competition is still ongoing, so they have to settle that right away because otherwise you don't want to go into the season with a question mark at the most important position on the field. I look at the receivers score; they're a deep, dependable group, led by Darrell Miller, 7 touchdowns. So I like the receivers. You know, they dependable. They're a balanced offense, but they have to give more production. It's good to do a lot of good things, but they have to get more production out of that group across the board. Terrence Holt will be a special player. Keep an eye on him, folks. Terrence Holt, he can play offense, he can play defense. He's also a returner, a dangerous returner, one of the best in the country, regardless of division.
4-2-5 defensive system. Second team, Dan Becker was their leading tackler, and first team defensive back, Kevis Buckley, leads the defense. Defensive line, Chris Newell, Donald Peeler, and Nick Clark need to really step it up for the defensive line.
Well, I like the defensive line. I think the defensive line is really, really good. That's going to be a strength of that team. The secondary is pretty. It has some talent back there. The cornerbacks are special. You look at all-conference player Kevis Buckley, 6 interceptions back there. That's impressive. You also look at Ladarius Davis, 3 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. So they can get their hands on some interceptions. Change of possession is always key. But the linebackers, I think, have to improve. But I like the defensive line, though.
The Tennessee State Tigers, James Webster in his 5th season, 8-4 last year, only 5 returning starters, which is a problem. Antonio Hefner, their quarterback, Javaris Williams, they lose, but Calvin McNair and Dominic Groom are also bad for the quarterback side. Dante Thomas is slated to be their wide receiver, only 2 returning starters in the O-line.
Yeah, they lose a lot of talent on offense, a lot of talent across the board. So this is going to be a rebuilding year for Tennessee State, a proud program that's rich in tradition, that's used to winning seasons, but they're going to take a step back as they revamp that whole offense. There's a lot of starters that will lose. Dante Thomas is the only rusher with some experience, so they got to find a quarterback, running back, a quarterback, wide receiver, as well as offensive line. So it's going to be a tough offense, a tough year for these guys on offense.
Rico Counter, the leading tackler, returns, and they bring in Florida transfer John Jones. The defensive back, Eugene Clifford, 3 interceptions last year.
Well, there's a boatload of newcomers on defense as well, too. So you look at, with those 2 guys you mentioned, that's the only consistent players they have on that defense. Everyone else is going to be new. So they're going to take, not only will they take a big loss, a big drop off in production on offense, but as well as defense, you're going to see a lot of new faces, a lot of missed assignments, a lot of blown coverages. They have to gel in order for this team to even smell like 4 or 5 wins, because this is going to be a tough year for this team because they lose a lot of players.
Revamp is the word for the Tigers this year.